And we're going to go ahead and get this set up again. Alright, so I don't actually have a build of this not completed, or not running, so none of them are out of the ground. But if you go down in here, this is what I had to do to make it function the way that I built it. As you can see, it's just the downward pistons are down, and that's an upward piston. And conveyors around two connectors to combine the two pistons into the same block. Now, these connectors are permanently locked, so they don't go anywhere. They'll fill with stone. Nothing you can really do about that. The rest of the build is identical to the original setup, and I've just had to finagle the connectors. Let me go turn the drills off so I can hear myself think.
Sounds fair.
So I don't honestly remember what the setup looks like without the blueprint parts, because it's been, what, a year since I put up this blueprint? And unfortunately, being on creative mode, I can't just bring a blueprint without it bringing in the whole thing, so.
No, I got it.
Let's see. Come on. There we go. Something like that. Now, if I remember correctly, when you paste it, or when you...
It's the top piston. So the top piston is there, so upper is there, but all of the assembly behind upper is missing.
Yeah, so this outward piston is still there, but this...
That's there, yep.
The piston cap will be gone because piston caps don't transfer.
The piston cap, that top one was there.
Oh, well, either way, it's as simple as just going there. Right. And this lower area, I assume, was also missing?
That's all there. That's all
there.
there. And it was locked in. Yeah, you've got the merge block down below. So yeah, that's what it looks like when you just build from the blueprint.
Okay. If I can remember which one was the one that was functional. As you can tell, I went through a lot of iterations of this thing to get this working.
Yeah, I couldn't work it out. I've been mucking around with it for about a day, and I just couldn't puzzle it.
Okay, so this is the lower piston, so we need a side block and a piston up, and then a block and a piston down from that one. Okay, I see how I did it.
Oh, I see. You've done something in between the two down pistons. Got it.
Oop, wrong one. This one. Alright, so I removed this light, because, you know, lights are optional. It was connector. If I can remember my rotational controls. Piston, connector, connector, connector. Sorry, conveyor.
Deactivated.
Or that's for something else that I forgot to turn off. That looks about right. And it was another conveyor. Piston down. Right, this part was kind of funky. Here you have to extend the piston at the bottom half. Yep. Hmm. Right. I used those merge blocks to connect the bottom so that it ported the whole drill bit over. Yeah.
Yeah.
This back, I think it was 2.3 meters. Let's see if I got it right, or if it explodes. Alright, there we go. I need this connector. Connector lower. Lock. That is the right one. Good. Fingers crossed, because, again, I do not remember the order in which I did this the first time. Alright. It did not explode. So far, so good. Alright. Let's do this the easier way. We'll extend the upper piston out. I think it's 1 meter, so all that's necessary. It does not like placing blocks in close proximity to each other, so you kind of have
I
to...
noticed. That was exactly the problem. So I see what you're saying. You're creating a space and then you reduce the space by building a connector back.
Well, we have to connect the drill bit and the lower piston to the upper piston. So that's all we're doing right here. This is a lot of work for a very simple thing, but it works. 3 blocks like so. Connector facing that way.
Ah, this makes sense now. Yeah, okay.
Bring this back to the 2.3 and reverse it. Alright, 2.3 is not the right range. Or, no, I over-reversed it. There. Yeah, so it should be perfectly lined up side to side, but top to bottom it won't be. If I can get
Got
back
it.
in the gap. Say this slight offset is unavoidable.
But the point is, you lock both of those, you leave them locked, and they're good.
Right. Now is the programming for the up and down pistons were very specific. So let me go get the proper numbers for those. Oh, hey, my broken one. Yes. Failure, original, failure.
Yeah.
That's space engineers, trial and error. Figured out eventually. Alright. The up-down pistons were not the same settings, so this is the bottom one. The velocities are very important. I had to set the impulses at around 50 meganewtons, I think that is. Let's see. To get it to operate the way it needed to. Maximum distance is also important. 7.4 down here. It's slightly different on the top. Which is 7.7. And the reason they're offset is because originally it was 2 pistons, but now we have to adjust for the gap of the 1.5 blocks of, or slightly less than 1.5 blocks of space between the 2 piston heads. So that's the reason why they're not the exact same number. The extending and retracting pistons should have the same numbers. 0.5? 5, that doesn't sound right, but... yeah, both of them would be at 0.5. That's just to pull it slightly off the rail. My other numbers were for the construction portion. So... anybody want a free drill bit? No, I know this isn't as oh, this isn't as blah, blah, English language professional a stream as I usually run when I'm doing stuff like this, but the hell with it.
Understood.
7.7 and 7.4, I believe they were. Make sure that's at 0.2. Higher than that, and it'll explode. Hence the drill bit over there. 7.7, 7.4. This might work on kilonewtons, but we'll see. Oh, right, they were extended at 2.3 because it's the only way I could line it up to this merge block. Right. Any questions about the build itself?
No, you hit the biggest path, the mental path that you have to take through, which I didn't work out for myself. So.
Oh, very important things. After you rebuild them, the lower piston, or sorry, the up-down pistons have a specific name that they have to be named as. I think I avoided having to rename the upper and lower pistons.
I thought they were a group in the original.
They were. Piston ASDF. It should both be called the same thing. And that will rebind them back to the buttons up top. All of the connectors and everything else should be carried over on the blueprint. Aside from the technical design of the connectors, I tried to make it as simple as possible to put back together. Just the more connectors and conveyors that you have to build and rename to make the buttons function, the more difficult it becomes for people who aren't familiar with the more technical aspects of the game.
Yeah, no, it's good because it's easier to build when you got the plan rather than having to guess on all of the tolerances.
Yeah. Reverse this back. This is going to probably try to explode. Or it's going to do some weird stuff like that. Reverse that. That just lines it all back up. Alright. Now, in theory, this should now function if I push the buttons. I think. If I remember to rename them. That should be it. Wrong floor. There should be drills, timers, start, drills, timer, and start. Now, let's see if it blows up. pretty sure that needs to be on.
Yeah, it does.
Keeps it from wiggling as much. Now, why is it not moving?
You didn't create a group ASDF, including the 2 new pistons?
Right. Yeah. Damn it. That was just called ASDF, if I remember correctly.
That is my memory.
Now this probably will break. Now that I messed that up. It's on the second half of the cycle. It might just skip a cycle. You can hope, right? Oh, nope, the lower block's that's gonna disconnect and the whole thing's gonna fall, isn't it? Oh, nope, there we go.
Got the right cycle.
Okay, because normally this one wouldn't turn back on, that would try to connect, and that one would disconnect, and the whole thing would fall into the hole. I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen. Believe me, I've screwed this up enough times to know how it can go wrong. Alright. Do note that if you are standing on the end of this antenna, that drill bit will only go down 500 meters, at which point it will break off. Now, there's a limitation of voxel destruction within the game that's hard-coded and nothing you can do about it, so if you're going outside of 500 meters away from it, stop it.
Don't mind that. 500 is fine. It's more for dropping one of these on an ore deposit and then building a new one on a new ore deposit.
Oh yeah, there are people who try to dig to the center of the earth. This is called a core mining drill, but it operates within the limitations of the universe in which it exists. So,
500 meters is more than plenty.
yeah. Aside from that, I don't think there was anything overly important. That should lock in. Maybe. Or... Okay, the connectors are locking in. That's good. The merge blocks are out of sequence. Lovely. Yeah, remember to name those that piston group. That's important. Merge blocks are now out of sequence. Fucking great. And yep, there it goes. Oh shit.
That's good. No, that gives me a start.
Yep. Yeah, that naming that piston group is important. If I had done that, that would function. That'd be fine. I confirmed it on this one. This I built off of this projector. Not this projector. There's a projector around here somewhere. Where is it? Ah, over here. This one. The one I've been taking my settings off of, actually. I built that off of this projector. The only mod that I'm running was for the Nanite Control Factory, simply because I did not want to build this all by hand.
I agree. I run Nanite for the same reason. I want to do big builds, but I want to get the ores honestly.
Oh yeah, no, welding everything together block by block when you're supposed to be able to go into space at a whim seems kind of silly.
Insane.
I mean, if you've got a group of people you play with, it's like, 50, 60 people strong, then I could see it, but unless you're only doing small builds, like this little base compartment by compartment, um, let's see if I've got a copy of it in here. stuff I stole from other people. Um, I have some original builds I did somewhere in here. So it'll be at the bottom with the pictureless stuff. Oh, yeah. This thing. This project I was working on with the actual developer. Woo!
Oh yeah, I've seen a few of these. I haven't gone into building one yet.
It's currently non-functional due to a... if I can get it to turn. There we go. It's currently non-functional due to the way they changed the physics mechanics on wheels. God, placing this is a pain. There, maybe? It... God. Well, my game's probably going to crash here in a minute. I missed the ground by that
Yeah.
much. Oh, there are warnings on the page about, no, this was part of what I was helping him work on was a tether builder for people to create it in creative, or not in creative, but in survival. This tether constructing machine that I've built here, this is completely original in design. I try to create something as streamlined as possible, no extraneous parts. It's not doesn't look pretty, just gets the job done.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of this is that when it gets to the 42 kilometers in altitude, which you'll be able to see with this beacon, you can stop it and then go up there with a torch and cut it off, and off it goes because it's no longer useful. Now it will
Yeah.
give you a conveyor to orbit too, which kind of defeats the purpose of an orbital elevator, but like,
Well, at
you
least you
know,
got a supply one.
yeah, it's like, oh, it was a cooling concept, but you know, you've got at least a passenger car up to orbit now, I guess. But yeah, his design unfortunately stopped working when they changed the wheel physics, which really sucks because I've worked on this on and off for several months trying to get it working again. Just nothing seems to work.
What about staggered landing struts?
Um, no, the problem isn't with the wheels holding traction. The problem is with it twisting around the beam and then snapping off. It's
But I'm wondering if the landing struts, so you had two different rigs with a set of the landing gear, one set locks while the other set moves. That should get rid of twisting, no, because in theory the wheels might twist.
The problem is that that causes collision damage, and even with these heavy armor blocks, it will still break the tether.
Ah,
And
bugger.
to get this broken down to this, I had to go into the world he created for this build and take this thing apart section at a time. Um, in case anybody who's watching is wondering what happens when you snap off a 42-kilometer long tether and then have gravity act upon it, your computer crashes. Because the first time I tried to do this, I cut it off right here. It was expected the entire 42-kilometer length to drop from orbit, and just, I could delete it as it came down and made sure it missed the bottom section. My computer couldn't handle it. His computer couldn't either, apparently. So it was just a problem with, you know, 100,000 blocks or so suddenly becoming mobile simultaneously. Something about that doesn't jive with scripts. It's yeah.
last time I crashed the server. It was I built one of the what's the big ship from? Oh, I've totally forgotten. I built one of the massive ships and didn't decelerate properly into atmosphere and crashed hard.
Um, yeah, we've tested that. We've done the replica model of the Imperial Star Destroyer 2, I believe it was. Somewhere in here we have Star Destroyer. Yeah. Yes, we tried to put fighters in it to make it as authentic to weight and capacity as possible. Um, it was over 500 meters in length from where we were all standing to the front end of the ship, so the front end of the ship actually phased into the planet because, again, voxel deformation occurs only within 500 meters of a player.
Wow.
Um, yeah, his computer was chugging for like 5 minutes while we were looking at a frozen screen, and then suddenly it started working again. Here it is. Okay, let's give this a second. As you see, it's 53,000 blocks. Eventually. Yes. I know this isn't going to be complete because it relies on some mod blocks, but get a basic concept of the size at least. There we go.
Oh, damn.
Oh, there. It's not to scale. It's not 1-to-1 because an actual Imperial Star Destroyer would be a lot larger than this. But
It's big enough.
very much so. Trying to remember what my blueprint page said about the deep core mining rig. I have two warnings on here. Right, unsupported stations needs to be turned off. Right.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was on the original as well.
I'm kind of curious as to why this is floating. Because it shouldn't be. Unless the blueprint pastes as a station. Maybe it bypasses that check. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, back to the actual topic of this video. I think we've gotten everything covered. Which one was it? This one. Right.
One with a broken drill bit near the top.
Now this is the old one I built that still works. So I turn all that on, properly naming all of our pieces. There we go. If you do build this with the Nanite Control Factory, that's one of the things I wanted to mention. Um, these connector merge block groups, the ones that start as um, projections, the Nanite Control Factory will build those underneath the drill bit, and it will actually stop the bit from moving. So
Yeah, I
when
turned my top projector off before I ground the first set of connectors that it built because of that off, so that I should be okay for that.
it actually builds down 3 connectors worth into the ground. So if you start up here, this is the first projection. It'll build all the way down to here off of that projection, which means that
But not if it's covered by dirt, right?
it'll still build it, which means that you've probably
Wow.
got some stuff underground. Um, the Nanite Control Factory bypasses some game restrictions just because it's, nanites.
Got
they
it.
they have ghost step.
Well, good to know.
This is not moving. I feel like I forgot. I feel like it didn't register a button press up there. Oh, anyway, that's the basic concept of the build. First time I did this, I had it setting up a whole bunch of. Oh, that's why. Yeah, if you want it to stop, I didn't generate a stop button for this, but if you want the whole build to stop, just go to timer block 1 and turn it off.
Got it.
And it'll finish its full cycle and then stop there. That way, when you go to restart it, just turn the timer block back on and then push the buttons as you normally would, and it'll just pick up where it left off. It's very important. If you stop it midway through a cycle, you'll break the whole thing. I swear I pushed that drill button. Beginning to think this thing's mocking me now. Alright. Ah. Why is Goodbot talking to me? I assume they've had some updates in the past year or so that I've just been ignoring.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, the original build is what I built this off of. The original build is the paste version of this that I have loaded into the script, or into the blueprint. Um, just with the addition of that merge block at the bottom holding the drill bit. So if you just load it in off of the blueprint on creative, all you have to do is cut that merge block off and set the distance on the up and down piston, or not the up and down, the upper and lower pistons back to the 0.5 meters, and it'll work like the original build. The blueprint still says a Zeta-11B because, again, it's not my construction. I changed it on this one that I built off the blueprint just because. Um, all in all, this is a fairly well developed build. And I like the built-in processing station at the bottom. I do actually have one of these working in a survival world that I'm running, so I can confirm that it does work, or at least it used to, in survival as well. It doesn't use any mod blocks, so I don't see any reason why it shouldn't still work. Um, so yeah. It also has its own built-in assemblers, so it is designed to be self-sufficient when it comes to building the rail it goes down. This thing will essentially operate on its own. As long as you give it power. I heard some knocking. Oh, that was it breaking because I turned the drills off, didn't I? Oh, no. Okay, now it's... Yeah, it's definitely mocking me now. I swear I turned this damn thing off. Wait, timer block 1 was off, wasn't it? I swear it was. No, it's not. What the hell? I don't know anymore. Jump in the hole. Oop, a little off. There we go. Good angle. Alright, that seizure-inducing camera angle there. Should connect. Good, good, good. Cycle's ended. We're all good. I guess alternatively, for people who have multiple Steam accounts, they can get a second copy of the game, load in a second character, put a seat on that bottom drill bit, and then just have a AFK box bot ride it down. But that seems like an awful lot of work and expenditure of real-world money for a pointless effort to drill to the center of the world.
Especially when you can keep building these things.
Yeah, well, especially when you can go watch a YouTube video of a guy that actually did dig to the center of the planet. If I remember correctly, I modified the bottom half of this somewhere. This was not the original. This was something I screwed up, it looks like. It's definitely broken. Fortunately, I'm not... I'm not sure what the restriction is for blueprints crossing over connectors. Why Keen hasn't been able to work that out yet. It's a little frustrating.
Well, it just doesn't project subgrids, but if you project a second grid over the top, you can, using two projectors, you can project the subgrid, but you have to divide the blueprint up.
Hmm.
In this case, because you've got so many pistons, there'd be a lot of subgrids.
Yeah, there'd be one projector just for a piston. So,
Literally.
yeah, literally. Or sorry, a piston and a conveyor cube. Yeah, and then one just for that piston. And yeah. Anyway, so that's gonna be that for the stream.